Good evening, folks. I'm known as Freedom Rocks. I'm an independent blogger, and you can find me at WordPress. I have been following the Great Louisiana Sinkhole ever since it first started, mainly because I had some friends down there who were staying in a camp, and of course, as soon as this happened, August 3rd of 2012, they were smart. They packed up and got the hell out of Dodge. But I have been writing a blog for the last year about it, and getting to know the people down there. There's some very good people, very great people. Um, Lots of tenacity. Lord, you gotta love them Cajuns. But my latest installment, I'm going to try my very first video ever on YouTube. It's called Louisiana Sinkhole, Monsters Below, Monsters Above. Now, before I get into all the technical data of the recent update that we supposedly had from Don Marlin, Gary Hecox, and CBNI, we need to take a look at the scope of it. We're not talking about a little small 2 acre or 1 acre little sinkhole like we were looking at a year ago. We're now looking at 26 plus acres. 26 plus acres, which has berms around it in excess of 80 acres, which is only a third of a mile from a neighborhood of 350 residents. What residents are left there? There's still about 100, 110 people left there who can't get out due to circumstances beyond their control, and some who just want to stay. But that's not relevant to anything I'm getting into at the moment. That's not my function here. But I will say that there have been some very good people, such as Mike Schaff, um, Gary Metrojan, Dana Cavalier, who lives in Pierre Part. She's really done her part. Been really supportive of the people there and trying to keep the word going and getting the news out. And people need this news because one day it may be your community, it may be your neighborhood that's in the crosshairs, and maybe you'll think then, wow, sure wished I'd helped them Bayou corn folk. Well, of course, it's never too late. But before we get to the updates and everything, there has been a general feud going on between OEP Office of Emergency Preparedness, John Boudreaux, who quite rightly went out into the middle of the sinkhole, brave soul, didn't he, to where the teardrop bubbles were coming up, which um, pretty much tells you exactly where the actual void through the bottom of the sinkhole is, and he dropped a crowbar with the ends cut off once with a 500-foot tape and once with a 750-foot tape, and it went to the bottom each time with a little resistance. And then we have, on the other hand, Mr. Sonny Cranch, who is a paid PR mouthpiece for Texas Brine, hollering back, "It's only 140 to 200 feet deep because sonar says so." Well, no, sonar doesn't say anything. Sonar can only show the reflectivity off of objects, and of course we know we've got 100-foot cypress trees that have been sucked down to the bottom for a year now. Only pieces of them get belched back up every once in a while. Trees, if you look at them in the on Earth in the daylight, you can see through them. They're not a complete blanket, especially cypress trees. Um, Even the Spanish moss won't completely kill sunlight, but it does get close. But at that same time, uh, this is just like a sieve. It's just like you're making pasta. You got to let the water out somehow. And this funny little feud between them, one is saying, "Oh, well, it's over 750 feet down," and on the other side, Sonny Cranch is saying, "Oh, it's only 140 to 200 feet." Well, let's just stop that. Let's just finish that little feud once and for all. And I'm sorry, Sonny Cranch, or as Kenny Seminole calls you, Captain Crunch. Um, you've been defeated here. Let's let Don Marlin tell you first. Then I'm going to let Gary Hecox tell you second how deep that hole goes.
The only thing that's not in the same position is what is possibly in this disturbed rock zone, which we all know that exists, because there's a conduit between the Oxy-3 cavern and the sinkhole. That's a given from all groups. So,
Okay, ta-da! The Oxy-3 cavern, the very top of it is at 3,400 foot down. The very bottom of it, before it fracked out into the sedimentary layer, was at 5,640 foot down. Now, let's clarify that a little bit better. We don't want just one expert to hop in here, So let's just try this. And by the way, this gentleman over here, that's John Boudreaux. And this is Gary Hecox of CBNI. And let's listen to what he has to say real quick.
Don is going to present his basic interpretation of the 3D seismic, and I want to tell everybody here the conclusions of what Don is seeing. First of all, he has identified what we're calling the disturbed rock zone from the bottom of Oxy-3 cavern up beside the salt to the surface. He's been able to process the Texas brine data, and he is seeing a disturbed rock zone. So we do have communication from the cavern to the surface. Now,
that's it. Case closed. Okay, peeps? Enough. There is a hole going down, we know, at least 5,600 feet. Possibly even further. So, get over it. Captain Crunch, you lost. Texas Brine, you haven't yet, but your day is coming. And Occidental, yours is as well. Now, let's get into the so-called status update, because a lot of people get confused by some of the technical jargon that's used in these. And I'm here for no other reason than to interpret what some of these people are saying when they say that they're saying what they're going to say, but they didn't say what they thought they was going to say before they said it. Right. That's how this has been since day one. Now, of course, we know it's been over a year, but this is back on July 16th. I apologize for taking so long, but first video I've ever done. Okay. Now, they've got this updated conceptual model, which, by the way, is pretty close to my conceptual model that I came up with 3 months ago. As for a cavern update, it's funky as can be, because the sediment inside the cavern is going up and down like a yo-yo. They don't understand why. That's because they don't understand true geology. They won't talk about the gas area and venting update, which right at the moment they've got like something like 46 to 48 different venting wells, venting about as much as they were venting with 4 wells at the very beginning of this. And they also speak about the CPT, which I don't really want to get into terribly too much right now, for the simple fact that, I have a tiny agreement with what they're trying to accomplish underneath the neighborhood, but the reckless way in which they've done it, punching a hole into somebody's sidewalk and just driving off and 350 feet and then just driving off and leaving it with it leaking, is not a very responsible thing to do. Now, they're saying that, of course, the interpretation of the 3D is going to have to be reprocessed. DNR has said we're going to reprocess it because new capabilities have come forth since that time, and Don Marling goes along with that. So, as we speak now, he should be sorting through the data to get a better idea of it, but we really don't need it for our purposes at this time. Now, what they keep talking about a disturbed rock zone, the DRZ. Honestly, what they're speaking about is nothing more than a quake zone, where solid sedimentary rock has been shaken into little pieces all the way from beneath the surface, just beneath the surface, where the sinkhole comes down to, which is about halfway of the aquifer, in and around 300 to 350 feet. And of course, then we have the disturbed rock zone, which is your void area. People have spoke about voids. There's 2.3 million cubic feet missing. Uh, well, no, it's not missing. It's just embedded within 4,500 foot of disturbed rock. You take one rock and you try to force water or try to force gas into it, you're not going to get too far because there's really nothing to hold it. But if you turn around and break that rock up, then you can pour anything you want to into it. That is where your voids are. All of this area, this disturbed rock zone, is your void. Now, the shape of it is similar to an hourglass, and I understand exactly why that would be. It's why my model showed it differently, because there is an actual fracture zone, and then there's the actual seismic zone. There's a fault zone that makes it into that at around, I believe, about 1,200 feet. Uh, Even though the nascent the nascent sedimentary fault block has been shattered as well, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Um, Now, the next thing I'd like to get into really is something difficult but simple. So please try to keep up with me on this. And I just want to take you into it first with just something really simple. This is our disturbed rock zone surface down, which goes down, like I said, to about 1,200 feet. Here is where they're saying the salt edge is, which of course right here, actually in this area here, is where the cap rock would have been. That was broken off. It's gone now. It probably extended out to about right here and come down in this manner, because that's the way it looked on the seismic, which came from, well, directly from Baker Hughes back in 2010. They're saying this is near cap rock, but all of this right here down to here is gone. There is no possible way we do not have water infiltration of the dome on this side, on this salt wall, where it's laying here against it. That will become apparent shortly. This is the upper disturbed rock zone. This is the actual sinkhole right here. As you can tell, it's very indicative of where it's all completely disturbed. This is the salt here, which lends credence once again to the simple fact that there is water infiltration. Of course, there's water infiltration in all salt domes, so please don't ever take it for a given that there isn't. There always will be water infiltration at salt domes. Weeks Island has proven that. Several other places have as well. Now, they're wanting to make a big deal out of the Big Hum, which was actually the Hooker 1 oil well was tapping into the Big Hum into a large deposit. Had been doing so for over 20 years. It changed hands several times. There was still a depleted formation whenever a Baton Rouge company just got up and walked off circa 2007, 2008 when they were using it for a gas extraction well. And they're making a big deal. Back in 2007, they were actually seeing, the remnants of it, of the formation, and then now it's not there. Well, there's a good reason why it's not there, is because it's already moved up the disturbed rock zone and has deposited itself within the sinkhole waters. I mean, we've had thousands of gallons of oil come up in the last year. We don't have everything that they do, but we do know we're in the low thousands of gallons. Now, this is a very interesting picture. Very interesting. Mainly because they finally admit it. And Don Marlin admits it in his presentation. And that is, whoa, that is, as you can see, this, of course, is a disturbed rock zone, and here's your sinkhole up here again. Here's your conduit, and as you see, it's laying on the salt, running down the salt. And these, in red, are the probable gas zones. But the most important one is coming from inside the salt. You see, salt or halite, well, we'll just call it salt rock. But the halite salt rock has interstitial spaces in between it. And it's a very, since this is one of the wettest salt domes in the world, this is a natural trap for it. Um, and unfortunately, this being the case, I do not see anywhere within our lifetimes that methane, especially the sweet methane, will ever stop flowing into the aquifer. As you can see, the aquifer's been completely malformed and disjointed here because of the caprock breaking off and, of course, the sedimentary level falling. See, this sinkhole would not exist if the caprock hadn't broke, which also means that parts of the salt broke as well. We do not know how back far this way yet that there is water infiltration, but I do have my ideas. But the reason we're seeing it around 1,600 feet, we're seeing this great concentration, is very simplistic. Back in 2003, down at 1,400 feet, actually 1,473 feet, Gulf South ruptured a casing in the salt, which would have been quite a bit further east, across Grand Bayou. And it did go into the aquifer, of course, but of course, where would it find its way to the aquifer? The only way that it could do so would, of course, not only be up the sides of the casing, but a lot of that gas would be trapped between the interstitial spaces of the salt dome itself. We really know not how much escaped or was trapped in there. But with any water infiltration whatsoever into the dome, at any point where it intersects, I guarantee you're getting sweet methane. Now, what I mean between sweet methane is there is a sour methane. Sour methane is what you would get from a deeper formation. It would have petroleum products in it, radioactive products. I mean, this is just normally what's in the earth. You're going to have radium and such. But the sweet gas that we've been seeing so much of ever since the very beginning, which they like to just call it biogenic instead of thermogenic gas, is in truth mainly thermogenic. The thermogenic gas is coming out of the dome into the aquifer. Oil is laying on the bottom of the aquifer because of the belches and the burps and everything else coming from whatever other source, which I believe it to be quite a bit further down than what they're showing. But that came up for quite a long while. Sooner or later, possibly oil will be coming into it. But as it stands right now, into the sinkhole, we're getting sour methane, sour gas, sour natural gas, whichever way you want to look at it. From the salt dome itself, which would be a much purer gas, not laden down with all sorts of chemical tagalongs and constituents. That's what's been rising to the top of the aquifer and now under the houses of the residents. It's a little bit safer, I agree, but then we do not know the long-term effects of methane whatsoever. What's coming out in the sinkhole itself, of course, is laden with H2S. We've had those readings every single day for quite a long while. Just a moment. Now, this is the modeling that we see at this time, and there's a very good reason that this is important. Now, where we're looking at this time, we're looking at usually we're sitting right around 1,600 to 1,800 feet here, and then we've got one similarly situated just a little bit lower. As you can see, these do not look to be going toward the actual salt formation. They look to be blown out, which is coincidentally just exactly the footage at 1,600 that we were seeing Don Marlin, whose interpretation I'm fully behind. I believe this will eventually wind up in the upper DRZ and into the sinkhole. It's also going to, in certain places, just through permeation, make it into the aquifer. It could take a long time, though. This is their lower DRZ, disturbed rock zone, and they say that the salt looks pretty good about where it was back then, but they really don't know, because here's the crux of the matter. This is what it looked like in 2007 on a very low resolution, and I do mean a very low resolution. You can see this tiny little bit right here, but it's not the same, and it's at further depth down, and it looks as if it's leading towards the top of the salt wall, quite shallow. The others are coming away from the salt wall or lower and fanned out this way. All right, now the depleted formation, of course, is supposed to be right here, and that's what they've made so much ballyhoo about. Oh, well, it's not there anymore. Well, that's where the Hooker 1 oil well was, which was what was pressuring against the shale sheath, of which the last 1,000 feet of the inside of the cavern, which was bereft of any salt, was up against. Now, they depleted this. As I said, actually, they did it over about a 14-15 year period. They depleted it, made it into this little formation, and now they can't find it at all. Excuse me, but I have a good idea where it went. Don't you? Okay. Now that's the 2007. Now let's go back over to the 2013, which is actually March, and you see a little different story. Again, I want to make it very clear, very plain. There is communication. There is a hole that does not go 200 feet down. It doesn't go 750 feet down. It goes 3 to 7,000 feet down, comes up through the backside of what's left of the top of Oxy 3 cavern, and goes right out to Oxy 3A relief well, which, by the way, Captain Crunch, Sonny Cranch, has stated they have been drawing brine from it. So essentially, they're taking free brine out of the sinkhole and using it to come to 3A, pump it over to Oxy 2, and out to their customers. How you like that one? Anything to make a buck. Of course, remember there is water up against the side of the salt wall. And every time that they draw on it, then they're helping to exacerbate the very situation that we want to avoid. I'm not even going to get into this because that's the silliest thing I've ever seen. There's no cavern on this side, period, from about here down. I actually believe there's water infiltration at least back another good 500 to 600 feet. You would not be able to see it because one thing about salt is it's plastic. Uh, the plasticity of it, the elasticity of it, is just unreal. It will fill any void sooner or later. Even this whole disturbed rock column, it may take, usually in a normal course, probably about 4,000 years to actually have made it up this far and out. But with this disturbed rock column, I would imagine we're looking at maybe 7 to 10 years, and this will all be plugged up with salt. It will expand. That's just the nature of the beast. Oh, now there's a lot more I could go into here, um, but I just want to show you. This is the lower zone. That's the bottom of their hourglass, and here we have the top zone. Now the lower zone is well and truly into the salt. There's no doubt about it. Um, Salt is a rock. That's why they call it salt rock. It is a part of the DRZ. There is a portion. And it does explain why there's more of a southerly movement at the moment. Does not mean it will remain that way, because we also have oxygeismar 1 and 2. Uh, at least they're casings that are definitely in danger at this moment. But just to give you an overall view, we're looking at a something almost as silly as mine, which I'll show you here in a moment. But you'll see there's possible gas here, possible gas here, possible gas here. Remember, there's several aquifers in between. An aquifer, there's not just one underneath the surface 100 feet down, no. And I do not agree with this sheath. This sheath is pretty much gone. The shale sheath is. It was shaken to pieces, mainly by a fault line. It was running perpendicular. And the reason I wanted to show you that is because about 3 or 4 months ago, I made this funny little thing up. Doesn't look as good, I know, but what do you expect from a man using paint? To me, this was my disturbed rock column and of unknown voids at the times. And of course it come down, and of course there's your fault line. And I had no idea whether this had fallen in, broken up, but I knew it was all shattered. And I'll just put the little oil zones in there. But what I find even more disturbing, quite a bit disturbing, is I have checked everywhere that I can. And I've had my geologist friend, my salt rock geologist, I've even had my seismic man, everybody in the industry that I will not name here because they still work, cannot find any reason why these produced waters that keep coming, which keep providing the pressures underneath, why they would not be coming from less than a mile away in the actual direction that the sands flow, the migration path from Howler Industries waste injection well over in Pierre Park, which is just, like I said, not even a good mile across from it. That goes all the way down to 12,000 feet. We don't know how much shallower it is, but we know there is a shallow intrusion before they actually put that well down and P&A'd it. We also have FAS, who has two, one at Bell River, one right at the exact same depths. Same formation sands are running right straight out of Pierre Park, right off of 70. We cannot find any reason whatsoever that all of that waste, oil field waste and everything else, has not traveled through these sands and is helping to fuel the Great Louisiana Sinkhole underneath. It's uh, it's mind-blowing. There's so many things going on at one time. But I do want to point out, right here is where Hooker Oil Well number 1 was, which later became known as the depleted formation. Now, what many people don't know is that Texas Brine did not brine this cavern out, um, personally that I know of. They didn't do it for their business purpose, I'll put it that way, because it was known as Hooker number 6 in the very beginning. Hooker Chemical is owned by Occidental Chemical, which is owned by Occidental Petroleum. They are the ones who commissioned Miller and others to map the salt back in 1982 and sink the well. This was known as Hooker number 6. Then they sold that off to Vulcan. When Vulcan was there, then Vulcan sold it back to Occidental, and the on-site operator became Texas Brine, just as Oxytaf 9 and 10, which are next door to 1, 2, and 3, or what's left of 3, is actually run by PB Energy, not by Texas Brine, and owned by Occidental. So maybe by taking a look at all of this, possibly you can get an idea of what I'm speaking of. This is not going to end. There's a way to make it end. But with the people you have in charge there, which is Texas Brine, Occidental, and others, it's not ever going to happen. Because there's only one way, and that's to collapse this disturbed rock zone. And maybe even do a backfill in any way that you can. Myself, I would put 3 wells down, at least. 1 straight through the sinkhole and its narrow neck. And I would definitely plant some charges, bust it up a little bit more, give it a little more porosity so we can pump some cement into it. Anything that we can put down at that depth, that pressure, that will stabilize this. Now, as for being able to do anything about the dome itself, it will work itself out in time. It will move over into this area where it's actually venting at around, like said before, around 1,600 feet. And traveling up this, I mean, that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to cut off its travel path. And it may lead to several smaller explosions underground, which is good, very good. But this cavern, whatever's left of it, has got to go. Its 3A connection has got to go. They're mining it still, has got to stop. It cannot continue. And that's pretty much my take on it. But I will say, for people who need or want to have a better understanding or to get to know the people there, please go to Residence for a Positive Assumption Parish, run by Miss Dana Cavalier. She's a wonderful woman. She's done a great job. You can also go over and find Bayou Corn and or Grand Bayou Natural Gas Bubbling and Tremors info, which is run by Mr. Jean O'Shea Jr. He's a very good man. You can get to know a lot of the people there. Become involved. You know, help people out a little bit. Because, you know, what is their community now that is under siege can one day, very quickly, become your community. Very quickly. Now, all along, these people have been told this is an unprecedented event. Never ever heard of, never postulated, never known, never knew anything about. And they're going to say that when it comes time for y'all as well. But as you'll see, it looks like Mr. Pierre Barrest wrote a paper in 2001 about a salt cavern abandonment test. And he's on the Blue Ribbon Commission, by the way, appointed by Jindal. So are quite a few others, all of them from the Salt Solution Mining Institute, which was co-founded by, of course, Texas Brine. Everybody on that dome, all of their servicers, all of their, every single one of them are a part of this institute. The Solution Salt Mining Institute, no joke. But Mr. Pierre Barrest, along with Mr. Burgess, Mr. Berard, Durup, and Gerber, performed a little experiment. And just to give you a tiny little idea, thousands of caverns have been leached out from deep salt formations. They're used for saturated brine production and/or hydrocarbon storage. They will be abandoned someday. The access well will be plugged with cement, isolating a large bubble of saturated brine. The later evolution of such a bubble raises serious concerns for environmental protection. Salt creep and brine thermal expansion can lead to brine pressure buildup and rock mass fracture. Then brine seepage can lead to pollution of overlying water-bearing strata. You really need to read this whole paper to understand just how far they went. And there we go. The Solution Mining Research Institute just pops up everywhere. Whew. Okay, well, I've made this my first video, quite a long one, and I thank you so much for sitting here and listening to it. And please visit my blog. It's a little bitty blog, but again, it's at freedomrocks.wordpress.com. Real simple. Real simple. I've written about 19-20 stories so far. And I doubt that I'll be back on anytime soon with videos, but we'll see how well this is received. Thank you very much, and have a good day.